What's up, everybody? Dave Bartosiak here with Zax.com, and I've got another chart of the day for you. This time, I'm going to go ahead and dig into my inner roaring kitty and talk about GameStop, ticker GME. That's right, folks. The GameStop we all know and love, with all the madness and mayhem, back in the news here. Now, I'm going to zoom out, just in case you guys forgot the madness. Of that huge, crazy spike that was going on. If you haven't seen that movie, what is it, Dumb Money, I think it is. It's entertaining. Is it accurate? No. Did they skim over a bunch of stuff? Yes. Are there, some things that are really going to upset you? Yeah, but let's say right now, if you saw it live like we did, it would upset you even more. I'm just going to focus kind of on the recent happenings here. And recently, it's really been in, for the most part, sort of this $20-ish range, okay? Save for some spikes when Roaring Kitty came back onto Twitter. For the most part, we're kind of bouncing around in the 20s. Now, recently, it broke down below its 200-day moving average. Now, that's something that it hasn't really done in a long time. Really going back to the 2024, May 2024. Last time it was underneath that 200-day moving average. So it's been about a year. So it's good to see that it's back in the good graces of the market. You got this big spike here today. This is because of earnings. Decent earnings report. I was looking at it yesterday. Of course, revenues are down year over year, but free cash flow was up. But the big announcement was they've amended things over there to where now they can hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet. So that caused the big spike. But where does this go? Sorry, I keep zooming in and out. I'm trying to find a decent sort of level here for us. Let's do some fibs, and let's go from this base in October around 20 to the high. And you can see that these have already come into play a little bit. Of course, don't forget the 200-day. That's going to be more dominant here. And then we've got this spike. So funny that sort of the low on the spike is a 50% retracement, and now we're flirting with that 38.2, and right, which is pretty much at 29. That's kind of where the stock is likely to end up here today. I think it is Wednesday, March 26th, the day after their earnings report. So some upside, of course, the $29 level. 31 is also going to provide a little bit of resistance should the stock keep on cranking higher. And then you have those recent highs, 34, 35. Well, let's get the real number for you. So I'm not just estimating the real number here. We get the January high of 34.40 and 34.37. So 34.40 is that high to keep an eye on. Now, one thing about this is we have this big gap, and we know the gaps love to get filled. So if the stock runs into some resistance here at 29, starts to roll over a little bit, I'd be looking for this gap to get filled before it could go higher. Pretty big gap considering yesterday's close, 25.40. The high was 25.77, and the low on the day today is 27.32. That's around where I saw it last night. I think at the end of the after hours session, it was 27.50 on the dot, if I'm not mistaken. Here we have RSI just entering oversold territory. And we know we could stay oversold for a while, right? Look at the last time that RSI entered that oversold, or overbought. Keep saying oversold, overbought territory. So this last time was November 2008. And if you look there on that day, we closed at 24.88. That's a far cry from that 34.40 high that we talked about, which it reached about a month and a half, 2 months after that. So it could be just the beginning of a nice little run here for GameStop. So that's pretty good. And again, you've broken away from both the 200-day and the 50-day moving average. Should this continue higher, you're going to see this 50-day sort of bounce up and tail up there, which could provide some downside support if it keeps on running. Now, we do see in the past, there have been times where GameStop does interact with its 50-day, I would say a little bit more than other stocks. So what I mean by that is it definitely influences the price. So look here recently. It's all on this ride up in July is providing support. You have a couple of down days, and now it's broke down below it. And then here's where you have an up and down, up and down. So definitely interacting with that 50-day. And while this is ticking lower, the stock ticked lower. And then now that it's ticking higher, everything was going in the right direction. So that's a good thing. And you can even see this failure here at the 50-day back in February. You did have another failure just ahead of the earnings report. That's a really great place to be, though. If you're looking at a stock and it's in between that 50 and that 200 day, that's a good thing for many reasons. Okay. It's good because that means it's sort of coiling up, right? As a long-term moving average and an intermediate-term moving average are coming into the same vein. That's basically telling you that the stock is kind of coiling up and it's ready for a big move in either direction. And in this case, it was a big move to the upside, confirmed with some decent volume so far today. Okay, I mean, this is midday. We're already at 28 million shares traded. Compare that to 10 the previous day. But most days, you're talking $3, $4, $5 million, right? So big volume jump. But that's what you expect to see on an earnings report. Now, how is this time different than these other big spikes? I think it's different because there's a fundamental shift in the business here versus speculation and I would say, I don't know, market mechanics, maybe for the most part, where you're talking about, oh, there's going to be a squeeze because of X amount of shares and somebody controls this many options, yada, yada, yada. And that was kind of the reason for these moves. Now it's a shift in the underlying business. So they've come out kind of leaner and meaner. And I think that's part of the reason why the stock is moving higher. So obviously they're cheering for the Bitcoin thing, but you're talking about a stock that has, 150 million in free cash flow versus losing money. So that's a good thing. And then they got money on the balance sheet. So I don't know. There's a turnaround over there, and it's starting to show up on the stock chart, which is usually where we see these first, right? It's like somebody knows, and it shows up on the stock chart, or at least that's what the technical analysis guys love to say. So that's what I'm going to say. All right, folks, there you have it for my chart of the day. That's all I got for you this week, in fact. So I'll be back next week with a couple of other great ideas for you. So for everybody here at Zacks, I'm Dave Bartosiak, and I will see you